Well, welcome back to the XR Theater. Hope you're enjoying the conference and have had some time to take a look at the exhibit halls. If you hadn't, please do take a look. There'll be some more opportunities throughout the conference to see the hardware and software solutions that are on display in the exhibit hall. Also, as a reminder, all of the content from the course will be available for on-demand viewing after the conference is over for the next 12 months for all of our registrants. So there's a lot to see. Can't see it all at the same time, but if you can't see it, so you can go back later and check it out. Also, as a reminder, we're going to have an AltSpace VR event later today. Hopefully you already received an email with information about that. We look forward to seeing all of you and being able to meet you virtually in person in AltSpace VR. Okay, well, next up, we're going to continue our discussions in the XR Theater. And we're going to now hear from Jeff Tarrant and Sarah Hill from Helium. Some of you may have heard of Helium. They're also in the exhibit hall. They've been doing very interesting work for several years now, using virtual reality for mindfulness to help with burnout amongst frontline healthcare workers, combining EEG with VR, using AR in very interesting ways. Really fascinating work from Helium. I've enjoyed watching their progress. And today we're going to hear from both of them in a talk titled How EEG-Powered VR-Suticals Can Ease Burnout Among Frontline Healthcare Workers. So thank you both for being with us here in the XR Theater. And you're up next. Thank you very much.
Well, first off, it was very relaxing and cool to think that you could escape just for that moment, just to go somewhere really neat and not think, hopefully not stress, and just escape for a moment.
We're really good at telling our patients and their family members to take care of themselves and provide self-care, but when it comes to us managing our own self-care, we're not very good at it. And so what are the few things that you can do each day to kind of take the edge off of the stressful days that you're having? So virtual reality for us is something new. It is something that we're going to encourage our care providers to become involved in and step away from the bedside for 20 minutes to breathe and walk through this tranquil, beautiful setting, and how can they help themselves get through this next 12-hour day or whatever it is.
we're going through a pandemic. We're part of a hospital for healthcare. It affects everyone. Our numbers go up, right? And that raises stress levels of what does that mean? How long are we in this? And when and if, when will it come to an end?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Hill, CEO of Helium.
I'm Jeff Tarrant, the Chief Science Officer.
And we are glad to have you here today, talking a little bit about our research and how mind-powered VR-ceuticals are impacting healthcare workers. So this study was done by Boone Health in Missouri and with support from GSK Pharmaceuticals. And we're here to talk with you a little bit more about it today. You can read about all of our science and our 5 peer-reviewed journal articles at tryhelium.com/science. And in short, what Helium does is allows you to learn to self-regulate. This is the Stress Olympics right now, specifically in the wake of what's going on with Russia. And not everyone is trained for it. And so that's what we're doing with these experiences, trying to allow people to see their stress, their focus, and their calm so that they can learn to control it. So these are whales that are floating through the Aurora Borealis, because after all, where else would whales swim but in the Aurora Borealis? And that's your EEG brain patterns associated with your feelings of focus, calm, and your mind is actually powering this. So if your feelings of focus, calm are above a certain threshold, that experience will advance. And if it dips below that threshold, then the background will turn red. You also get a score for the percentage of time that you spend above the threshold. So these are the experiences that are powered by your brain patterns inside virtual reality. And some of the experiences that are being used right now with hospitals around the world with frontline healthcare workers for compassion fatigue. And that's what Jeff is going to talk about right now. With a study that was recently published in Frontiers in VR Medicine.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. It's great to be sharing this information with you all. So this is the most recent study that we've published looking at the impact of virtual and augmented reality, specifically virtual and augmented reality meditations as a way to impact stress and anxiety. And in this particular study, we were looking at the use case for this within a hospital setting with frontline workers. And so what we were doing here was comparing a virtual reality meditation. It was a guided body scan meditation where they were sitting on a beach going through this meditation while they were monitoring their brainwave activity, compared to the same guided meditation, but in audio only form. So we really wanted to kind of head to head look at this and see, does virtual reality plus neurofeedback provide any additional benefit? So a quick look at our participants. We had 100 subjects, and so we had 50 in each group. We basically took turns assigning them into the experimental condition or the control condition. You can see that there was a much larger percentage of female identified participants than male. So something that we can improve on in the future, trying to extend our demographics. Most of the participants did not have much of a meditation history. So this was sort of a novel experience. I think the most important element to look at both with the meditation habits and education level is that comparing the two groups, they were nearly equivalent on all of the different metrics. So again, suggests that the two groups were essentially equal. And in fact, when we did run statistics on that, there was no significant difference between groups. So the technology, we've kind of explained it, but using a virtual reality beach scene, you can see that up at the top, and then using the BrainLink Lite EEG headband to monitor brainwave activity and the frontal lobes associated with a state of focused calm. And this was integrated with the Helium software so that people were able to monitor and then modulate their brainwave activity during the experience. So what we used as an outcome measure in this study was the Brunel Mood Scale. So we like this a lot because it's great for measuring states, how somebody's feeling in the moment, and then any changes that might occur. And so all the subjects completed this scale before either the control condition or the experimental condition, and then immediately after. And by the way, I should note that the meditations were about 5 minutes long. So these were brief meditations, and it was done purposely that way as to look and see, could this be useful during somebody's workday? Just taking a short break, and can we help shift moods? So the results, the Brunel Mood Scale breaks out into a variety of different subscales. So we looked at each of those. And this first slide is really looking at kind of more of the negative moods, right? So anger, tension, and depression. And you can see the blue line indicates the pre and the post average scores for the virtual reality plus neurofeedback group. The yellow line is the audio only group. And so what you can see on this slide is that both groups decreased significantly pre to post, and there was no significant difference between groups. So you can see the p-values for each one of these, and really that's combining both groups together and looking at changes over time. So this was interesting to us because while of course we would like to see the virtual reality outperform audio only, this is a consistent finding that we've seen in other studies, that it seems to be the case that a brief relaxation experience has the biggest effect on negative mood states across the board, kind of regardless of what you're doing. So this wasn't a big surprise. Now, when we look at some of the other scales, things start to get more interesting. And by interesting, I mean there's a difference between groups. And so for all of the rest of the comparisons that we did, there was a group by time statistically significant difference, showing that, you know, these two, the interaction between groups and time was statistically significant. And so you can see with the vigor scale that the VR group decreased while the audio only group increased. And that's an interesting one that I want to hang on for just a second, because that might on the surface seem like a negative finding for the VR group, because wouldn't you want vigor to increase? However, when you look at the specific items that make up that scale, and you look at it in the context of changes on the other scales, it becomes pretty clear that the reason that the VR group was showing a decrease is because they were becoming more relaxed. And so this is actually a positive finding that the vigor score was decreasing. You also see the VR group decreasing in confusion as well as fatigue. So again, these all seem to be findings in favor of the VR group in relation to the audio only group. And then the last slide, and for me, I think the one that's the most fun, is looking at the scales that definitely have a clear positive mood associated with them. So happiness and calmness. And you can see that the audio groups basically had no change. However, they, whatever their level of happiness at the beginning was basically the same at the end. However, you see a very sharp increase in both of those scales for the virtual reality group. So this seems important because what we're seeing is that there's a generic relaxation effect of basically taking a break. If you take a break doing anything, it tends to reduce feelings of anger and tension and depression. That's sort of like everybody gets that. But then there seems to be these additional benefits that you get by using virtual reality plus neurofeedback. So on all of the other scales, so vigor, fatigue, confusion, happiness, calmness. So for us, this was a really important finding because what it suggests is that there is a very clear way to use this technology in high stress situations, such as a hospital setting for healthcare workers.
And if you'd like more information about that particular study, you can read about it in Frontiers in VR Medicine. We're involved in about a dozen different trials around the world right now. And this is one of them. You can experience this stress animal on our platform right now. It's a jaguar that you can actually control with your brain patterns. So as you increase your feelings of focus, calm, that jaguar will actually change from a pounce position. It will sit down right next to you and start to lick its paw. And you can actually play ball with your stress animal as a tool, a drugless, non-harmful coping mechanism for this, what we call the Stress Olympics. In addition to the studies that Dr. Tarrant mentioned, you can read about all of the studies with helium on our website at tryhelium.com/science. If you have any additional questions for us or feedback about helium, that's on Oculus, iOS, Android, Pico, the Steam and Vive Flow as well. You can email us at hello@tryhelium.com. So appreciate the opportunity to share with all of you. Don't forget, this is the Stress Olympics, and not everyone has trained for it. So we welcome your feedback on our products and telling other frontline healthcare workers that their thoughts do have power to control things, not only in the virtual world, but the real world as well.
Well, thank you, Jeff and Sarah, for that wonderful presentation. And again, if you guys would like to hear more about helium, you can check out their booth in the exhibit hall to see what they're up to. Well, next up is another exhibit hall participant, and that's Amy Hedrick from CleanBox. And again, you can learn more about their stuff in the exhibit hall as well. And so CleanBox, as many of you know, has been a real leader in creating pragmatic solutions for a very pragmatic problem. And that's how do we effectively and rapidly clean headsets. And of course, that's important in any field, but in healthcare in particular, and certainly during the era of COVID-19, we've had a particular interest and focus on making sure our headsets are cleaned. We do actually use the CleanBox at Cedars-Sinai to help clean our headsets as part of all of our study protocols and for clinical practice. And so today we're going to be hearing from Amy on the topic of planning your XR deployment, building blocks for successful engagement. Look forward to hearing her presentation. And Amy, you're up next. Thanks so much for being with us here at the Virtual Medicine XR Theater.
Hi, I'm Amy Hedrick. I'm the CEO and founder of CleanBox Technology, and I'm here today to share a few insights with you on the building blocks of a successful XR program. So for a successful XR program, let's talk about planning for it and what are some of those building blocks for successful engagement. After all, an XR program is wonderful, but what really makes it successful is that it's reusable and you create an environment and an opportunity that people enjoy, that they learn from, and that they want to repeat. A little bit about CleanBox, and I'll talk a little bit more about us later and where we fit into the entire ecosystem of a successful XR program. We are a smart tech hygiene company. We specialize in surface decontamination using proprietary engineering of UVC light. So moving forward quickly into the building blocks of a successful program. What we see on the screen right now might seem a little basic, and it is, but the reason I'd like to start basic today is because I do think that oftentimes what I've seen through the types of customers that we have is that it's very, very exciting to talk about an XR program. And there are certain things that fundamentally everyone likes to talk about. And that would be the amazing use cases available through this technology, the ROI, both from a financial side as well as sometimes the time it takes for a new training program. But what sometimes gets forgotten is, of course, those basic building blocks. Now, CleanBox, as a first to market company in the XR space, we have had the unique pleasure of working with a number of verticals, a multitude of industries. So we have clients in healthcare, we have clients in education, in manufacturing, in government, in entertainment, automotive, and a number of other use cases. And so it would seem like the diverse set of clients might have a diverse set of strategies, but I have found that the pain points are the same no matter what type of industry you're in. If you're deploying an XR program, you're going to have the same logistical problems or challenges, if you will. You're going to require the same types of strategy and the same building blocks. So let's jump right into some of those ABCs of strategy. Defining your goals. Now, while that might seem a bit obvious, often it's not. Often it is something that gets defined along the way. But the most successful programs will have defined their goals at the very beginning, and they have a very big range of goals. So as some companies are a little less proactive or progressive, if you will, on deploying an XR program, and maybe their original goal might be different than something you're considering today. So defining these and being very, very specific from the beginning will allow you to create the most successful program towards your end goal. So is that training? Is it training of a new set of skills, or is it training for a new way to do an old thing? Is it your program, is it intended to be small so that you can ultimately get global corporate buy-in? Or is it something else, but you also will eventually need global corporate buy-in? So your goals might be many of them, and they might require you to do a lot more planning ahead of time. But the most important thing is that you define them at the very beginning of your deployment. So your total value proposition. This is really important to think about in a non-siloed way. And I think that's what I've experienced is a lot of industries do look at these, they look at all of these components, but often the way they look at them is very siloed. And it is important to look at them collectively because it's all connected. That ultimate success story will be connected to how you deploy from day one. So what tech serves your need? And here you're going to have to look at hardware, software, and the support systems. You're going to have to know your audience. Is it a mission-focused content that is headed directed towards your employees, or is this something else? Are you planning an XR program that is for patients or for customers or consumers? And then, of course, think about the technical skill ranges. If it's your employees, you're going to have a range of age groups and demographics. And if it's a client base or a patient base, you're also going to have an age range and demographic range. So thinking about the skill sets or skill experience, technical skill experience of your end target. The value proposition should always be, is this reliable? Is this hardware, software, support system, content creation reliable? Does it accomplish my original goal? Is it repeatable? And is it re-educational? And then you think about the scalability. Is this a pilot program that I'm putting in one location for one specific purpose? If so, then you can define what tech serves your needs a little bit differently than you might if you have to think about deploying this in several countries or several locations or hundreds or thousands of locations. And then when you're thinking about hundreds or even thousands of locations, you should consider cross-cultural impact. So then once you have the basics of your strategy and your planning around your XR program, now you have to talk about the 1, 2, 3s of deployment. One of the basic things, define your target users. And if you've done a proper job when you're planning your strategy, you will probably already have a good sense of who those users might be or could grow to be. Plan to have training and have expertise on hand. Understand the logistical requirements of a broad scale rollout. I will say that organizations tend to be a little bit better about this than they were 2 or 3 years ago, but it is still in many ways in infancy of global corporations. So decide before you deploy how you're going to measure engagement as well. Does engagement mean that you get all of your end user to put the headsets on? Or does engagement mean to you that you get them to try it once, try your XR program once? Or potentially engagement really means to you is they try it once, they like it, they learn something from it based on the goal that you originally had, and they decide to do it again. And then, of course, one of the most important things about this is knowing who is to quote unquote write the check. Although writing a physical check is becoming kind of ancient history at this point, but you have to understand ahead of time and plan for who is going to approve this budget so that my program will actually roll out and actually have the support it needs to be successful. Let's see if I can scroll forward here. There we go. So again, coming to deployment, it's all connected. Even though it is often siloed in terms of the decision-making process, ultimately it is all connected. So those decisions should not actually be made in those siloed ways. So infrastructure, training, hygiene, safety and logistics, operational planning, it's all connected. The speed to market and the simplicity of your rollout. One of the things that I have found is the most important for a successful program is tech as a second skin. And this is in one of the ways that my company comes to play and actually has a very strong engagement in the rollout of a successful XR program. So you have to elevate that user experience. Your goal is to have a re-engagement and reuse of this program that you've spent time and money and resources creating. How do you create something that is successful? That tech should be tech as a second skin. That should not be something that the end user is, wow, this is very strange. It's a hard technology to adopt. It should feel comfortable. It should feel engaging. It should feel welcoming, and it shouldn't feel that it shouldn't feel like something that the user does not want to do. How some of the factors impacting that? How does that user feel when they actually put that HMD on their head? Will they want to put it on again, or is it awkward, uncomfortable, too heavy, doesn't fit right? Many of those challenges, of course, are being solved or addressed at least by HMD manufacturers, and they have been for the last few years. But these are important things to think about when you think about the success of your deployment. And then what I like to call the 10-minute limit. If you don't want to stay in that experience for 10 minutes, you're not going to want to do it again. If you don't want to do it again, you have not created a program that has re-engagement and will keep your audience excited. Now, let's talk about hygiene and operational logistics, because that is the next part of the successful deployment of a program. And that has to do with going back to elevating the user experience, tech as a second skin, the comfortability of the environment that you're in. What does your safety protocol look like, your health and safety protocol? And that is where the cleanliness of your headset and the logistics around that safety part of it come into play. As I mentioned at the beginning, Cleanbox is a smart tech hygiene company. Our specialty is proprietary engineering of UVC light for surface decontamination. And for those of you who are not familiar with how UVC works, or even have just a peripheral or a vague knowledge of it, I'll give you a few more insights here. UVC is a surface disinfectant. What is UVC? It's a wavelength of light. We know about UV light. There's UVA, UVB, and UVC. C is the wavelength of light. It's the shortest wavelength of light, and it does not enter the Earth's atmosphere. It is naturally filtered out. So what that means is common pathogens like viruses, bacteria, they don't have a built-up resistance to it. And thus, it's a highly effective way of cleaning, of decontaminating. That UVC works to disrupt the DNA and RNA strands of that contagion, and that means that contagion is no longer able to replicate. So that is just kind of the basic of how UVC works. Now, of course, as we think about how does UVC work, how do we make it work effectively? Is all UVC equal? Let's talk about when, where, and how UVC does work. And it is specific. You do need to use it properly for it to be effective. Some of the things that come into that ultimate efficacy include a few things here. We call it the cumulative dosage, and that's really what it is, because it's a number of factors that come into play. But the wavelength, in that UVC wavelength range, there is a range of wavelength, and you need to take into consideration exactly which wavelength you're using. Of course, your intensity, your surface distance to surface, the amount of wattage, the exposure, and then a number of other things, shadows and so on, will impact how effective your UVC decontamination is. I won't get into the weeds on the technical or science side of this, but for those of you who are interested in learning more, we do have a white paper on our website. It's a collaborative white paper, and you're more than happy to download it or reach out to me later. My information will be at the end of this presentation. Again, a few of those components that impact the efficacy of UVC include a few of these notes here. And these are some of our CleanBox products, and I don't want this to be product focused today, but we do, based on our use cases that I've mentioned before in different industries, we have learned what those business pain points are, and some of the value propositions that we bring to the table are creating products that meet actual real business pain points. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions about our product after this, or separately, you can email me. So a few case studies I want to share with you. I'll start with Hoag Healthcare. It's a healthcare system in Southern California, for those of you who are there. It's down the road a couple of hours from Cedars-Sinai, but they have used our products extensively, so we have a lot more insight into their programs. And I like to talk about them because they have several programs that were continued to be used throughout the height of COVID quarantine. And I find that that's really, really important. Again, going back to the logistics of your program and how well thought out is it? Have you thought about future pain points or other problems? But they have a number of programs that, again, were continued to be operational throughout COVID because they've been using our CleanBox products as one of those health and safety points in their logistical rollout that they addressed before it became a problem. A few other case studies I want to share with you just from our client base and some of the successful stories. New York City Health and Hospitals, of course, there's a simulation center, and they use XR to enhance teamwork and clinical skills. The European Sperm Bank, this directly impacts the donations that they receive. Montefiore Medical Center, again, providing travel experiences for children with cancer. Many of you who are here today are aware of so many different types of XR programs out there, different end use cases, if you will. But I'm just sharing with you some of our client base so that you can always ask me questions after for any of them in terms of their programs. On the non-healthcare side, some of our other case studies include Toyota Manufacturing of Canada. They use our OmniClean series for respirators, for respirator testing, cleaning accessories. Hinton Scaffold, they have an extensive VR program, VR kits for scaffolding training. We work with a number of pharma companies and biometrics. They usually prefer to remain anonymous, but some of their use cases, both with just our general products that are non-XR as well as XR focused, include some of these here. And then Parker Seminars, they use VR for globally for chiropractic training for both doctors and assistants. And it's really exciting to hear some of these use cases that I, even knowing the space as well as I do and having as many clients, diverse clients as we have, it's just exciting to see some of these new use cases that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of. So hopefully this has been a little bit insightful for you. Again, keeping it very much back to the basics, talking about those things that are really important for a successful program. And hopefully this actually just created a lot of questions for you and you'll reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer questions and I would love to hear from you. Again, thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure being here.
Next up, we're going to hear from Geeta Berry, who is with Penumbra, and Penumbra as well has been very helpful in supporting our event today and can be found in our exhibit hall. And we're going to be hearing from Geeta about the very pragmatic issue of breaking barriers for healthcare VR adoption. All of us here are interested in medical extended reality and getting these headsets into the hands of patients. But there are barriers to doing that, a variety of different barriers. And so at Penumbra, they've been thinking about those. And I really look forward to hearing Geeta's presentation today to help us think more critically about how do we break through those barriers of healthcare adoption of virtual reality and XR. So thanks so much for being with us today. Look forward to hearing your talk.
Hi, I'm Gita Berry, Executive Vice President and General Manager of Immersive Healthcare at Penumbra, Inc. Thanks for joining my talk today, and thank you to the VMed organizers for this opportunity to share more with you about breaking barriers for healthcare VR adoption. Before I dive into the talk, let me introduce myself and a little bit more about Penumbra. I have spent more than 25 years of my career in the medical device industry, mostly focused on devices for interventional diseases and orthopedic devices as well. Penumbra is a global healthcare company with more than 3,500 employees with products that serve patients and healthcare providers in well over 100 markets all around the globe. We were founded in 2004 and we went public in 2015, and we have done all of this great work to build devices that are really innovative for different particular conditions to help serve patients and certainly their care providers. For example, we've had the opportunity, our first innovative product was the Penumbra system. We were founded in 2004 to be able to help with mechanical thrombectomy and the acute removal of clot from the brain. The Penumbra system was that first generation of that product as depicted here, and we've continued to innovate on that technology since that first system in 2008. Through our innovations, we expanded from the neuro field, and we had the pleasure of having more opportunities to demonstrate our technology, this time in the peripheral vasculature. And that has led to this incredibly innovative offering of the Indigo Lightning system in 2020, where we introduced a whole new intelligent way to aspirate clot from all different parts of the body. It's been very exciting to be part of these two incredible endeavors. And now, starting in 2021, we've also introduced this new arm to our business called Immersive Healthcare, which is with our entry of the Real System platform. We entered this space because of the incredible clinical evidence with VR in healthcare. There's so much out there to demonstrate the outcomes of when you use VR in the healthcare space, how patients and their providers can benefit from this incredible technology. There's more than 5,000 journal articles, more than 600 randomized controlled trials, and even a number of meta-analysis articles to help support the use of VR to generate positive clinical outcomes for patients when used together with their healthcare providers. But what's different today? We have this amazing amount of clinical evidence, but what we don't have is widespread adoption. Something's getting in the way. When we look at the things that are getting in the way, it's not the incredible activities and games that have been designed to address a range of conditions. That is incredible work, and we're so thankful to be part of more than the 100 companies that are building this kind of technology for patients and their providers. What's getting in the way, which is creating a low install base and challenging everyone in this space, is that we've got different hardware and software platforms. Many of us are using off-the-shelf gaming-based hardware. Many of us build an option, build a tool, build an activity or a game, but it's then locked onto that headset. We have a very difficult time of company A's technology is for one condition on one headset, and company B's technology is on a different headset for a different condition. How is it possible to train an entire healthcare staff to know which headset to use for which condition? And then how do they keep track of the operating software? How do they know how to use it? How do they know how to use it with their patients? These are some of the biggest challenges limiting adoption today. It's not easy. And most of our healthcare providers aren't great people with technology. They embrace technology, they're excited about it, but they themselves are not necessarily VR experts. So how do we help them? How do we help them adopt this incredible technology that the clinical evidence demonstrates can so benefit their patients? This is where Penumbra comes in, and this is where we try to hit our goal. We see 4 key pillars in terms of a platform that's needed to support a healthcare-wide VR solution. The versus hardware. We need hardware that's designed for the healthcare experience. It needs to be cleanable. It needs to be something that they can use and not worry, do I need special technology in order to address this, or can I even clean it in the first place? We need easy to use software and services. We need easy to use operating systems, and we need people to help support them as they learn to adopt the technology. They learn how to the basics of how do I use this? How do I use this with my patient? We, for example, for our rehabilitation use case, we have this incredible team of OTs and PTs, occupational therapists and physical therapists, who help support our technology to help our providers be comfortable with the technology as they use it with patients. We need an expansive activity catalog. This is not something that one company can likely design on their own. You need activities founded in clinical science, and you need something that has a range of different conditions, such that that investment that the healthcare system is making in VR technology can be used across a whole range of patients with a whole range of healthcare providers. And finally, we see the key to a large install base is also having secure and compliant data. You've got to be able to trust who has your data, who's storing your data, and is it compliant with HIPAA and other data privacy standards. You've also got to know that the data isn't going to be used for something that isn't directly for the benefit of your patients and your healthcare providers, and then something, for example, outside of the space. This is where we see incredible opportunity for our Real system as we continue to grow. Let me introduce you to the Real system.
Real Immersive System by Penumbra is an advanced technology that brings immersive therapeutic experiences to life using virtual reality. Penumbra's products include procedural devices that physicians around the world use to address life-threatening vascular diseases. With Real System, Penumbra is bringing innovation beyond the hospital to empower possibilities for individuals on their rehabilitation and wellness journeys. The vision is to enable a vast network of independent developers to build immersive content on Real's technology. The result? A rich, expansive, and evolving library of immersive therapeutic activities and wellness experiences, all accessible on Real System.
We admit that we have a really big vision, and there's a lot of opportunity ahead of us and a lot of learning that we need to do as well. But we see compelling use cases. These compelling use cases begin with our two platforms. Our Real Y series, or our Real System flagship product, today is focused on rehabilitation, specifically in the areas of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. With this system, we do in-person therapist-led sessions to address motor skills, core and balance, cognition, functional tasks, vision, wellness, a whole host of different activities that happen typically in the rehabilitation space. With our Real I series, we focus on cognition and mental well-being. The I series is a gaze-based product. I'll share more about that in a moment, but these are self-led experiences for patients and users for a variety of healthcare and senior living settings. We address things like distraction therapy, reminiscence therapy, mindfulness, and cognitive stimulation. And we're very proud of our feature called Real Connect, which also brings social connectedness, where you can bring together the user with someone anywhere else in the world into their VR experience to essentially have a side-by-side experience with what someone's experiencing in VR. It's an incredible experience. If I dive a little bit deeper into the Y series, again, this is about fun, engaging sessions with patients. Again, this is our rehabilitation product. We offer an operating system or I call it an operating system, but we offer something on our tablet called Therapy View, which allows the therapist not just to choose the activities for their patients, but customize the intensity and the frequency of sessions. It allows them to change different settings. We have mirror settings, we have speed, we have the number of different times that you have to repeat an activity. All of these are options that the therapist can control to engage their patients along that therapy journey as that patient progresses and continues to their new goal, their new objective as part of that therapy experience. All of these applications are building on an expansion of our clinical utility and innovation in our software and hardware technology. Our hardware is built off a 6DoF headset and our proprietary sensor technology to really have one of the most advanced immersive experiences available. And finally, if I go to that fourth pillar, which goes back to data analytics, we visualize patient progress with session range of motion and other measures to facilitate clinical reasoning and track functional changes. We want not only for the system to be fun and wonderful for the patient, we want it to have so much to offer to the clinician, to the provider, to those therapists as well. So for example, designing with a purpose, I'm going to dive into one of the activities in our Happy Valley world. This is called Chuckleball. And so in this particular activity, we have functional movement patterns, dynamic reaching and postural control, visual recognition, motor control, reactive movement, so many things that you can do with this activity as you're blocking bluefish with your hands or your head. Let me show you what this activity looks like. Here you can see the patient is interacting, and the therapist can change the reach. The therapist can change how many of these bluefish come their way. They can adjust for the settings for the patient themselves in terms of their capabilities. So many options with an activity like this that is founded in clinical science, particularly rehab science, for our patients and our providers. If I move to the Real Eyes series, again, this is our product that is a gaze-based experience that's self-guided. We have more than 10 hours of immersive content aimed to support mental well-being and cognition. It includes both animated interactive activities as well as 360-degree plus video that allows users to immerse in the experience and really enjoy different scenes that may engage them another way, and then share that with our proprietary Real Connect for that one-on-one connection with not just the VR user, but also someone on a PC to be able to put all of these things together. Again, this is also a 6DoF headset, so you get the most immersive experience in this type of setting. What we're learning as we break down these barriers, as we offer more of this technology, is that we're seeing that therapist and patient engagement. We're seeing the number of minutes increase over time. We're seeing the number of sessions increase over time as people become more comfortable, providers become more comfortable with the platform. Patients ask for the platform. We're so excited by what we've seen with patient engagement, and we can't wait to see what continues to happen in the future. And so there are barriers in us today, in our world today, in the marketplace that is limiting our install base. It's limiting our ability to get more software updates out to our customers. It's limiting how much content they can receive and how much we're putting on the staff in these hospital settings or other healthcare settings for them to have to learn our technology. We're excited with Real System to provide a healthcare-wide VR solution to grow that install base to something much, much larger across a wide variety of settings. We aim to enable third-party developers to bring content to our platform, and then we want to have healthcare compliant data security. We think with all of these changes that we can make a significant impact on bringing the incredible amount of clinical evidence that I talked through in those more than 5,000 journal articles, making that become a reality day to day for patients and their providers. Thank you so much for the time today, and I hope to meet you in the future. Thanks.
Well, thanks so much, Geeta, for that wonderful presentation. And again, if you'd like to learn more about Penumbra, you can check them out in the virtual exhibit hall, and hopefully have a chance to talk with Geeta and others from the company. Now, next up, we're going to hear from Scott Anderson, who is currently the Chief Clinical Officer at SyncThink, which is a neurotechnology startup company that's focused on using eye tracking technology to help identify common neurological conditions. And they've been working with the Pico Neo 3 Pro Eye. And today, Scott is going to talk about that collaboration in this talk titled Measuring and Improving Human Attention with SyncThink, and the Pico Neo 3 Pro Eye. So thanks so much, Scott, for being with us today. Look forward to hearing your presentation.
Hi there, and thanks for joining me today at Virtual Medicine 2022. Today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that you're probably becoming more and more familiar with over time, and that's attention. Actually, human attention, our attention. And over the last 10 years or so, the team at SyncThink, myself included, have been responsible for really studying and developing measurements of human attention and being able to correlate those findings to advance the care of various neurological conditions. And so today I'm going to be talking about specifically how we have advanced human attention measurements, the science of attention more specifically, and how technologies like integrated XR are helping us to achieve the goal of being able to deliver better solutions for identifying and treating neurological conditions that are literally afflicting millions and millions of people on a daily basis. Now, the emergence of technology in our lives today has resulted in us in becoming a little bit more dependent on technology to survive, right? And as a result of that, really, there's never been a higher premium today than there has been on our attention. It literally is what many technology companies are interested in capturing is our attention. How do they capture it? How do they sustain it? And how do they get us dependent on their technologies so that we can interact with them and spend time utilizing those devices? So our attention has come a long way, but it hasn't always been fit for being able to do the things that technology is now allowing us to do. And so in order to better understand that and to better understand how our brains have evolved, we really have to start by thinking of how our brains have evolved from an evolutionary biology perspective. And really, the questions are these. How has our brain grown from the size of a tennis ball to the size of almost a soccer ball today? Why has that occurred? What circumstances under which we have become more complex creatures and as a result have evolved to have more associated, more complex biology like the human brain? Is it because of the requirements of the things that are happening to us in an evolutionary perspective, physiologically, or is it something else? And I think when we think about evolutionary biology and we think about the progression of how we have developed as humans over time, the brain gives many answers. It tells us a lot about what we have done and how we have evolved in order to survive. And this is 100% tied to our attention. The reasons for our biological evolution are very simple. And that's because of us, because of people. We have become more complex. There have become certainly many more of us, and there are many more things around us that we have created. And so as a result, the human brain has learned to not only evolve in size, but has had to evolve in size in order to be able to be willing to enable it to interact with all the things that are now around us, things we have developed, more social experiences, more needs for continuous and constant monitoring of what's going on in our vicinity, in our environment, and being able to provide real-time information so that a corresponding action can occur based on the frequency of the things that are happening around us. And so when I talk about attention today, I talk about the process by which the brain is interacting with things that are happening around us, being oriented to time and space. this is now an evolutionary requirement that is up to the second. We have to, every second, have to continuously take in information through the visual system, through our eyes, and the brain controls the eyes so that we may constantly be oriented to our external environment. And the result of that gives us an expectation of time and space. We become oriented to what's happening around us. And this is the true essence of evolution of our brains and subsequently our attention. Unfortunately, this larger brain and this evolution has come with a price, an unfortunate prospect of how we have learned to interact with the things that are around us, which is the process by which we process information. Unfortunately, the human brain takes time, 250 milliseconds. Some people may think that's not a long time, but to the human brain, it is a lifetime. 250 milliseconds to receive visual input, to process it, and then to provide some type of corresponding action. And so what happens is the brain receives visual information. It is rendered to the prefrontal cortex where our attention networks are. And that information is passed via neural network signals to both the parietal lobe, which gives us information about spatial orientation, and the cerebellum, which gives us, or the central midbrain, which gives us information about timing. So this process is something that, as again I mentioned, is time sensitive, but also is the fundamental process by which we go about orienting ourselves properly so that we can utilize our attention to interact with content that we find interesting or that we want to interact with. So this delay, unfortunately, leads to the brain becoming more predictive. And prediction is a key element of brain state activity that I'm going to talk a little bit about more because it's tied to our attention, and it's also tied to how we have specialized in providing measurement of human attention for neurological care. And really what it comes down to is that visual processing of information and being predictive, being able to know what's going to happen before it happens based on previous input that's been received by the brain is what ultimately defines our attention. And being able to be predictive as a brain state allows us to constantly fine-tune our attention so that then we can provide interactions in the moment. And as I mentioned, this is something that happens on a moment-to-moment basis. We're doing this thousands and thousands of times, almost every second, where the brain is moving our eyes to select content, to select visual information. We're being predictive based on that information, how it's come in, what's going to happen. And then we are honing our attention so that we can decide what to do next, which is typically either a verbal or motoric action. So we're either verbally responding or we're moving so that we can adjust or we can respond to what's happening in our environment. And so this kind of circular pattern is something that's happening over and over and over again in the back of our supercomputer. It's the basis for the software that we run on our supercomputer, and it is the basis for how attention is fine-tuned over time. Now, when I talk about prediction, people often say, what does that actually mean? And I'm going to give you some concrete examples. There are some basic activities that we do on a daily basis, things like reading or jogging or walking across the street or even riding a bicycle. These are all examples of basic primitive prediction elements that our brain requires in order to know what to do next, right? So for example, if I'm reading a book and I don't have experience in reading a book, my brain does not know where to direct my eyes. But the more and more that I read, the better I get. My brain becomes predictive and is able to understand where the words are, where the next line is, where the page stops. And I can use those prior experiences to become more predictive and to be more precise with how my brain processes that information. all in an effort to overcome this delay of waiting for the information to come in to be processed so that I can then do something else. And so these are examples of situations, some of them more dangerous in nature. Perhaps you want to cross the street and there's a lot of traffic. You need to pick and choose the right movement or the right time to move your body across the street so that you can avoid being hit by a car that's maybe crossing at the same time as you. And so this is a predictive sequence that we use all the time to be able to avoid something catastrophic from happening, as well as being in tune with our external environment. Riding a bike is another great example where things are whizzing by you, everything's a blur, and you have a very little time to be able to react to what's happening in your environment because of the speed you're generated. And the faster you are going, the more likely it is you are going to need to use that predictive brain, or you're going to have to have that predictive brain be functioning at its capacity so that you can avoid running into something or crashing the bike and becoming injured. So how do we know that this predictive brain is something that is acquired over time? Well, we've studied it, and we can look at aging on a U-shaped curve and see that these predictions that are occurring often result in errors. And in early ages, we have very little variability in our predictive errors. We have very high variability in our predictive errors when we're young. And when we reach the age of about puberty is when we start to overcome those predictive errors, and we become more optimized in our ability to process visual information and to create corresponding sensory motor action. Now, when we get to the age of puberty, all the way through till about the midlife to our early 50s, this is when our attention is optimized. This is when we have very little, if any, prediction errors, and we've had so much experience at being able to predict what happens next through visual processing of information. Our attention is fine-tuned, and we are able to sustain our attention for long periods of time. We're able to go to school and sit and pay attention and do classwork for long periods of time. We're able to get jobs, and we're able to work for long periods of time and produce work for long periods of time. And we're able to also do more risky behaviors that potentially carry risk associated with them, but could potentially lead to catastrophic results. But our attention, being optimized, is able to overcome that. And as we get older, our attention deteriorates further, and we see the prevalence of more prediction errors occur, similar to when we are young. So some examples of those: catching a baseball. When we're in middle adulthood, we can teach ourselves to catch a ball really quick, and we can do it very simply and execute it very easily when we're in our teens or our early 20s. Flying an airplane, a very largely by association, a very dangerous activity that we can get really good at being able to do safely through the maturation and the sustenance of our attention. Being able to drive a car and to be able to not hit certain things, or to be able to stop on a dime when we're supposed to. These are all things that have resulted in the culmination of our past experiences at being able to fine-tune our predictive errors and to minimize them completely so that we can operate these types of machines safely. And certainly firing a weapon is another example. This is something that the military certainly looks for in snipers, is this high-tuned attention, ability to focus for long periods of time and to eliminate things that may result in predictive errors. Unfortunately, when we see predictive errors at different points in life, they are the result of cognitive impairments. And this is really where we have spent the majority of our time, is not necessarily looking at how the development of attention occurs across the lifespan, but what impairments are closely associated with predictive impairments that erode attention and that potentially lead to disease or pathology that are common in society today. And so when we think about some of these conditions, what's really interesting about them is that there is a tremendous amount of prevalence to these types of neurological conditions, and they all have certain types of attention-related disorders associated with them that involve predictive errors. And so people's attention is degraded or is impaired as a result of this condition, and they can no longer process visual information and orient properly to the things that are happening around them. And so this is something that, while we are still learning and trying to understand better, we also know that being able to differentiate these these different conditions is the key to being able to correctly treat these conditions as well. And that's where our technology comes in. Our technology is iSync. It's an XR-based platform that uses a series of 60-second assessments that are very simply and easily performed in a non-invasive way inside of an XR headset. And then we use machine learning techniques to be able to identify, classify, and structure the type and severity of these types of prediction errors to quantify the type of impairment that's associated with a particular disease. And that's really the basis for how our technology is utilized today in the healthcare environment. And so I just have an example I'll play real quick here of a paradigm that we use. We provide a target that's inside the headset. It goes around smoothly in a circle, very simply, and we ask you to keep your eyes on the target. And while that target is moving, we are working in the background inside the headset to capture and record and quantify your eye movements and to specifically look for any types of prediction errors that may be indicative of any type of disease. Here we're replicating the external environment. Things are moving in your external environment. You're having to move your eyes to them to understand what they are and to process that information. And so in order for us to be able to clearly identify your cognitive impairment, we have to use paradigms like this. This is one example that allow us to clearly provide some type of objective information that can support the clinician in making a decision. Now, one thing I'm really excited about is the advancements of XR technology to be able to enable us not only to equip clinicians with the right type of technology, but also to equip the patient with a satisfying experience that allows them to provide this type of information. We're accessing, as clinicians, we're accessing their brain function, their real-time cognitive function, and they're allowing us to do so in an environment where it's non-invasive and it's a comfortable experience for them. So I want to take a minute to talk specifically about the headset that we're using, the Pico Neo 3 Pro I, which is a really state-of-the-art headset that has specific features built into it that align with the goals of the clinicians that use our product, as well as the patients that are being tested. For example, we utilize the infrared sensors, emitters, and cameras that are built into the headset to perform eye tracking. And this allows us to capture with high fidelity the patient's eye and to be able to record what their eye is actually doing based on their interactions that we request of them. There's also a 4K display with autofocus, which allows us to account for interpupillary distance issues that may occur at different points in life, and to allow us to provide a clear still image to people so that they can interact with it, and we don't have to manually adjust their vision as a result of it. We use Bluetooth. Bluetooth-enabled headsets are really critical for us because we capture and record and do all the quantification of the measurements inside the headset, but then that information is passed via Bluetooth to a handheld tablet that the clinician manages, and the clinician makes a decision based on the information that's provided onto the tablet in the form of a report that can be customized or interacted with. And so this is an instantaneous process of being able to take what's in the headset and what's happened in the headset and the computation in the headset and provide it to the tablet immediately, so the clinician knows what to do with the patient or knows what the patient's predictive errors look like or what type of problems they're potentially having. The headset provides spatial audio so that we can provide standardized instructions to the patient so they know what to do for each assessment. And furthermore, so that we can use sound to create more immersive experience in some of our therapeutic endeavors. And finally, providing a fit that's more ergonomic and counterbalanced so that patients don't have strain on their neck or that they don't feel uncomfortable while they're taking the assessments. This is really nice advancement, I think, in the headsets that we've seen over the years where people have gone to this counterweight design to allow the patient to feel like really they're not really wearing anything other than something that's simple as a pair of glasses. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be with me today. I hope you learned something new. I'm always interested in furthering the discussion, so feel free to reach out to me here if you have any questions or if I can provide any more insights.
Well, now for our final speaker of this XR Theater session, and to wrap up day one of VMed 22, is Marko Subacic, who is the Associate Director of the Digital Worlds Institute at the University of Florida and an associate professor in digital arts and sciences. And his very innovative research team does fascinating work using a variety of technologies, including VR. And today he's going to be speaking to us about digital worlds for well-being, interactive VR biofeedback meditation systems for ICU patients and staff. So thank you so much, Marko, for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Marko Subacic, and I'm the Associate Director at Digital Worlds Institute at University of Florida. Today, I will present my team's research work on digital worlds for well-being, interactive VR biofeedback meditation system for ICU patients and staff. Our project DREAMS, which stands for Digital Rehabilitation Environment Augmented System, the aim of this study is to develop and assess the feasibility of a novel, immersive, intelligent system to humanize the hospital stay by improving the quality of sleep, reducing pain, lowering the usage of sedatives, and stimulating cognition. Our work takes place in this line between the validated and a virtual reality. And in doing that, we explore this concept of presence, where one has a tendency, a mind has tendency to perceive as real what is being presented to it. Thus, we're taking advantage of virtual reality in order to create, again, the sense of presence. And then as we do that, as we create a virtual cocoon, so to say, around somebody, we're looking to perform a process of transferring one awareness, one consciousness, if I may, from one reality to another. Thus, in our case, where we're working primarily with the ICU patients and ICU doctors, we have an opportunity to transfer our patient from a place of stress that causes a lot of anxiety, an ICU unit. So in case of patients, often just the ability to not be there anymore, to not be in a hospital room, but to be somewhere else, right? Taking, again, advantage of this concept of transferring our mindfulness and creating a sense of presence into virtual reality. Thus, even in our application, we do started by acknowledging the scene in which the patient can be found. So if they are on the beach, we acknowledge there is a beach around, that there are waves, that there are birds around. As a matter of fact, at one point of time during meditation, the practitioner is asked to close their eyes. So they're already in virtual reality, yet from virtual reality, they're asked to close their eyes. They meditate for a little bit with their eyes closed, and then they open it again, and then they find themselves again in this virtual world. Thus, this moment of opening their eyes, increasing the sense of presence. Now, using virtual reality has been done for a while now, and it has been proven to have very positive effect in treating patients who have suffered from perception in traumatic injuries, from burn victims, elderly, and more we are seeing more and more niche targets being addressed by virtual reality. We're finding that there is a positive correlation by creating customized content for specific groups. So in this case, we're working with ICU patients, and then in our current research with ICU staff as well. Now, why would we work with virtual reality in healthcare? This was a very important question for us to answer before we started working on this. And for us, argument number one is that app is an incredible observational tool. We can keep collecting data from each session, then algorithms can analyze it, and then in the future, AIs can create recommended types of practices based on each specific user's need. Argument two in this case is scaling. Well, we can certainly purchase many virtual reality headsets, far more than we can get maybe live coaches or meditation coaches. So in this case, so scaling is really important to us. And then argument three is what I just spoke about, is this sense of immersion, a sense of presence in virtual reality. Then in this case, in the case of ICU unit, the need is to actually isolate the practitioner because the environment is not supportive of meditation. Many hospitals may have meditation programs that often have this challenge of being hard to attend or being on a different wing of a hospital. This allows for treatment to happen anytime, anywhere. We can have staff in the chair in the corner with the noise canceling headphones, a virtual reality headset, completely separated from the reality they're in, and being able to transfer them to virtual reality and apply treatment there. So Dreams VR, the app that we have developed, allows, this is a menu from our app, allows the user to choose location, to choose music, and to choose the type of meditation exercise. One of the unique aspects of this system is that it has been developed in collaboration with our target groups. So the VR meditation exercises have been created specifically to address the challenges of ICU patients or challenges of ICU hospital doctors. That's not looking for one type fits all situation, but very much targeting the type of challenges that our practitioners are in the need of. Here we have several locations, from seacoasts to waterfalls, beach being one of the most popular ones. Now, in our pilot study, where we worked with the ICU patients, we worked at UF Health Shands. It's a very large state university affiliated hospital in Southeast United States, in Gainesville, Florida, here where the University of Florida is based. We did a full university institutional review board, and it was fully supervised by members of the ICU healthcare team. In doing that, we enrolled about 37 patients in our study with very specific range, age, and capability on the side of patients to not be intubated, to be cognitive, so they can interact with the virtual reality system. Here are some of our results, and that we can see here now that the biggest impact that our pilot project, this is again with ICU patients, the biggest impact was on pain ratings. We can see that there's this very large drop between hour before and hour after meditation. Now, what is interesting is that in several patients, about a couple of hours later, the pain seems to come back. So one of the things that we did in the follow-up studies is included meditation that happened twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And in those future studies, following studies, we found that to be of actually incredible impact. So the density of meditation sessions. When we look at heart rate and respiration, we have very minimal changes. So we did conduct also a qualitative study during which we interviewed all the ICU patients. And in the remarks about that, the system was very well accepted. It was found to be comfortable and impactful, but also some additional remarks that we found that we did not necessarily predict but maybe are not too surprising, are things that like patients in the ICU have very little tolerance for frustration. So if it was incredibly important that our VR system was relatively easy to set up and smooth. As soon as something, even the smallest of technical complications occurred, often patients had very, very little tolerance for that. And we had a situation where if we had some issues, the patient would literally just say, please, I cannot do this right now. And we would lose a patient in our study. They also can be very emotionally sensitive. So that was something that we had to be very mindful about as they experience meditation and relax. Sometimes the emotions would overtake them. And also that they're incredibly quickly immersed into VR. They're already in this very strange environment of an ICU unit. So all of a sudden, when they get to this situation of virtual reality, it seemed that was mind wanted to go there, wanted to go away from where it was at a time. Now, that was our pilot study. Our pilot study, again, was with ICU patients. And then we started our current work, which is on digitally enhanced behavioral intervention. In this particular case, what we're doing is actually now we are introducing biofeedback device to the virtual reality immersive experience. So what does this look like? Our practitioner would have an EEG device around their head. They will have virtual reality headset and noise canceling headphones. Now, what this does, the EEG device, the biofeedback device, is now connected as an input device to virtual reality headset. So the state of our mind is actually informing the virtual reality content and what the meditator will experience. Again, we're repeating our approach in shared decision-making and working with our target group, in this case, primarily ICU staff, doctors and nurses, and working very specifically on addressing the challenges that they are having at their work. So when we conducted actually a pilot study here, you can see pictures of some of our doctors and nursing staff here at UF Shands. We did conduct a very small pilot study. Here you can see them using Oculus Quest and Muse headband. This was the setup that we used for our initial pilot study. Again, the brainwave technology may seem quite futuristic and something that may be from science fiction in terms of reading people's minds. That, however, we're not really reading here complex thoughts. What we're doing here is sensing activity in the 9 different sensors around the brain and being able to read alpha, beta, gamma waves. And the algorithm would analyze it in real time and be able to say, hey, is somebody getting calmer or not? So this work has been actually backed by decades of scientific research, and quite a few of those things we might hear in these types of conferences. This is the current biofeedback device that we're using. It's called the Crown by a company called Neurosity. We moved from Muse to Crown as Crown device is open to developers. They allow for creation of apps on the top of Crown. We can see here their own app that records meditation. So again, Crown works incredibly well for maybe at home use. There may or may not be need for necessarily for virtual reality aspect of it. However, in our specific case, we're talking about the need to actually shut down, literally to shut out the reality where that is being experienced by either ICU patients or ICU doctors. So in this case, what we're doing is using Crown device, combining that with the virtual headset and noise canceling headphones, and being able to follow what is happening in meditators' mind. Now, using these types of tools is not something that is new. People have been using technology to improve meditation for thousands of years. Mandalas are a form of technology that helps meditator achieve a calm state of mind. So we have just, mandalas is one option, chanting. The history of humanity is full of technologies, tools that we have introduced into our meditation practice to help us to get there quicker, better, faster, or to get there at all, for that matter. So in the same vein here, in this particular case, what we're doing is we are creating new tools, new technologies that allow our practitioners to achieve certain levels of calmness faster. And this is really important because the nature of ICU unit, if a patient in ICU unit may not have much more than a week or so before life deciding decisions will take place and they will either survive or not. So we have to, if we are to truly believe into the positive impact of meditation as technology, as useful as we know that meditation is, we also know that often it takes a fair amount of time. So what we are looking to do, we're looking to leverage that. We're looking to leverage the types of technology available today where we can, for the first time in thousands of years of human meditation, be able to see into a human mind. We all have experienced maybe guided meditation where we sit and somebody is helping us through this process. And then we have the situation where at the end of it, we don't know, maybe, we drifted for minutes at the time and thought about our daily problems, and we're not really meditating at all. We're just kind of sitting there. And we kind of forgot ourselves. We got just taken, carried away. And these kind of real-time biofeedback devices allow us to follow in real time the activities of the mind, and then to inform our virtual reality, where we can then have this interactive biofeedback informing our field of vision, if I may. So as we move there, so this is actual screenshot from one of our test scenarios where we have the coast of Big Sur in the background in California, and then overlaid by this image of a flower that resembles actually mandala quite a bit. And as the user, this is our prototype, where as the user relaxes, the petals of the flower are created. There are some visual effects with these balls in the background, but ultimately we're filling up the flower. This was a proof of life concept, but it also does this very basic idea of building something beautiful, giving an idea to a patient about what is happening in their body, the positive transformations that are actually occurring in their body as they meditate. And then in the next iteration of our work, once now that we were able to create this direct biofeedback connection, we can create further experiences, much more complex experiences, 3D worlds that change, that flourish as we relax our mind. And then when the biofeedback device notices that maybe we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and maybe we're getting stressed out again, well, there can be audio visual feedback letting us know that we're drifting away and kind of saying like, hey, please come back. Thus facilitating the practice, the discipline in meditation in a way that we never really had that kind of a technology at our disposal before. thus leveraging again this biofeedback interactive tools, like in this case, we're combining Crown with Oculus Quest 2 and noise canceling headphones. We are moving the concept of meditation into spaces that did not have it as optional to do that, such as hospitals, intensive care units, where the very nature of the environment is loud, there's a lot of lights, there's a lot of commotion, and it's simply impossible for ICU patient to go and remove themselves and to go somewhere else that will be peaceful. So we instead must bring peace to them, must bring peace to the patients as well as healthcare workers who, again, are often unable to leave the floor that they're in. As we look into the future with our research work, this is a real image from UF Health. A couple of our graduate students experimenting with augmented reality and having the ability to create not just virtual reality, but augmented realities where we're experimenting with what would happen if we're not actually removing somebody from the space that they may perceive as unpleasant, but how about creating this additional layer of pleasantness in the space that they are in? And we have been having some really promising positive feedback from our initial studies. Another area that we are exploring right now is end-of-life care, where people who might be towards the end of their lives, and this was informed by some nurses that we work with at ICU unit, the opportunity to revisit some of the our own memories in virtual reality towards the end of our life. So we've been having a lot of interest from this, from nurses and doctors in this area, and we're seriously exploring these options. Thank you very much for attending this presentation. Once again, my name is Marko Sulejic. I'm an Associate Director at Digital Worlds Institute at University of Florida. You have my email address here. We are very open towards collaborations. We are a group that is engaged with research, with generating new knowledge in the areas of emerging technologies, in this case, augmented and virtual realities in combination with biofeedback devices to facilitate the benefits of meditation to specifically ICU patients and ICU staff. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Well, thank you, Marko, for that fascinating presentation. It's a great way to end this session in the XR Theater and a great way to end day one of VMed 22. Now, the day isn't quite over. For those of you that would like to join us in the AltSpace VR Mixer session, that's up next. Hopefully by now you've already received an email or communication from our team with information on how to access the AltSpace VR session. You can go on in VR headset if you'd like the full experience, but you don't need a VR headset. You can also just go on in 2 dimensions right there on your screen. Check it out, come on in. We look forward to meeting with you and talking to one another. Once you get in there, you'll see how it works. Again, you should have received something by now, but if you haven't, then you can email our conference line, check that out on the website. In any event, we hope that you've been enjoying VMed 22, and we really look forward, if we don't see you later in the AltSpace, to continuing the discussion tomorrow. Take a look at tomorrow's agenda. It's another day packed full of great programming. It's hard to choose where to go, but the good news is, even if you miss some sessions, they'll be available for you on demand after the conference is over. So with that, enjoy the rest of your evening. Those of you that are in Europe, thank you for hanging in there, and we certainly hope that you can continue, although we know you're way ahead and it's kind of late in your time zone. But thank you all from around the world for joining us here at VMed 22. We'll see you soon. Take care.
you.